Little refrigerators switched on to cool the windows and save anyone burning their fingers.
We were carrying the American team from New York to Malaga for the Ryder Cup, and we decided that they'd try the longest putt. So what they did is the chap putted a ball right back down the length of the aeroplane. He caught it in a cup. And it took 23 seconds. And in that time, we'd gone 8.5 miles.
I would like to point out to you the extremely fine view of the curvature of the Earth that we have up here today. That is the curvature of...
One of the great pleasures of flying Concorde was looking out of the tiny windows, because you've got this extraordinary landscape with the Earth curving away at the edges. Felt like being on a spacecraft.
Leaving Heathrow in the evening gave pilots a sight no human had seen before. Travelling faster than the rotation of the Earth, the sun appeared to rise in the west. Concorde flew so high, so fast, American spy planes had to be ordered out of the way.
One of them told me, said they were sitting over Cuba, spying at 60,000 feet and had been for years. They were in spacesuits, sitting on the edge, and then they were told to move north by 30 miles. Guess why? He said, because there's an airliner going past. So he said, we looked out the window and there was a Concorde with 100 people in shirt sleeves drinking champagne.
1350 miles an hour, 23 miles a minute, a mile in every 2¾ seconds, 10% faster than a rifle bullet, lands end to John O'Groats, 24 minutes, Concord.
But in the first 6 years of service, Concorde lost money. Lots of it. In 1982, BA boss Sir John King decided it was make or break time for Concorde. He called Captain Walpole into his office.
He said, I am going to give you Concord Division, which is going to be created, and it's up to you, and you form your own team, to turn Concorde's losses into profit in 2 years. He said, if after 2 years it's still losing money for British Airways, then I will terminate the operation.
Failure would spell the end of Concorde and the end of supersonic flight. The new Concorde division set to work. Brian Walpole and Jock Lowe looked at the routes, the fares, the flight timings, the sandwiches, everything. And they asked businessmen how much they thought a ticket on Concorde cost.
Well, most of them didn't know. It was their secretaries of travel companies that were doing the bookings. And when asked to guess, because the senior, very important people, they all guessed that the fare was higher. So very simply, we said, we'll charge them what they think they're paying. And so we put the fares up.
The move was a stroke of pure genius. Concorde was rebranded to provide a super elite class for merchant bankers, corporate lawyers, the rich and the famous.
I think flying Concorde full stop made you feel like you were in a club. There was the business class lounge, and then there was the first class lounge, and then there was the Concorde lounge. I mean, you were made to feel that way.
Concorde became the place to be seen.
I used to ask people for their autographs, and towards the end I got a little bit picky when I asked, you know. I've got Paul McCartney here, and he sang me a little song in the aisle. Concord, 20th of May, every good wish, Henry Kissinger. Engelbert Humperdinck. Margaret Thatcher.
No aircraft, before or since, attracted as much publicity as Concorde. During Live Aid on the 13th of July 1985, 1 billion television viewers around the world watched Phil Collins dash between concerts in London and Philadelphia on the same day.
I was invited up to the cockpit to report back to Wembley, and Bob Geldof and Billy Connolly. And I put the headphones on, and someone said, so, what's it like? And Billy Connolly said, it could be fucking anywhere. You know, we don't even, he could be underwater. We don't even know he's in Concord. And then when I left to go back to my seat, the pilot said, we're not supposed to do this, so don't tell anybody. And the world is watching. The world is watching. I thought that was quite cute, you know.
And when ordinary people wanted to fly Concorde, BA was quick to take the cash with cheaper charter flights.
My son said, you won't get her on there, she won't even get on a 12 bus.
It was such a lovely atmosphere, and I remember once having a Spitfire pilot. It was just so satisfying to be able to take him up to the flight deck, and he had all his medals on, and so it was just delightful to take him up to introduce him to the captain.
Concord flew out of the red and into profit. During the good years, the small fleet of just 7 aircraft generated up to a staggering 25% of BA's profits.
We made about £500 million, £500 million net clear profit. And suddenly now, everybody loved us, and we did. We loved being involved with the aeroplane as well. So it was a wonderful emotion, positive, successful emotion.
For once in her life, Concord's future looked secure. But then in 2000, disaster. Concord had an enviable safety record, especially for an aircraft working at such extremes. There had never been a fatality, but that was to change on the 25th of July, 2000. That afternoon, 100 passengers eagerly awaited Air France Flight 4590 to John F. Kennedy Airport. A German company had specially chartered the Concorde as a spectacular start to a 16-day cruise leaving New York. But there was a delay. The Concorde Air France planned to fly was out of service, and they were using a standby, Sierra Charlie, the oldest Concorde in the fleet. It had a fault on the thrust reverser on engine number 2. The repairs would hold up the flight for 2 hours. Meanwhile, there was confusion in the dispatch area. 500 kilograms of extra luggage had been loaded without being recorded on the manifest.
C'est bon.
On the flight deck, the crew were keen to take off. The captain was Christian Marty, a French national celebrity, the first man to windsurf the Atlantic. He'd ordered the maximum amount of fuel. Concorde needed every drop to get to New York. Marty expected to burn 2 tons just taxiing out to the runway. With the thrust reverser fixed, the passengers finally started to board. The dispatcher brought Marty the manifest. It listed the overall weight, crucial for calculating the takeoff. But without the extra luggage, it showed the aircraft lighter than it was. In the South Air Traffic Control Tower, Concorde's flight controller was Gilles Logelin.
Air France 4590, bonjour.
4590, bonsoir.
The flight recorders give us a record of every word spoken that day.
Approchez-le de vous et mettez-le devant votre bouche comme nous vous le montrons.
The airport was busy. At the far end of runway 26 right, an Air France 747 was waiting to cross on its way to the terminal. It had landed moments earlier. On board was the French President Jacques Chirac, who was returning from a G8 summit in Japan.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous attendons quelques instants pendant que le Concorde utilise la piste en face de nous.